It's story time. 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 Okay, we are doing this for real. I am officially doing episode number 2. We were last talking about this piece, which when I was rewatching my recording, I noticed I didn't even share the title, which was It All Depends, which is a theme that would haunt me for the rest of my waking life. The concept of it all depends. It really all depends. Just the cliche, perspective is everything. It really depends. This or that depends on this or that. And this was during a part of my life where so much depended on context, whether it was my relationship and how it was being observed from either parties, or my relationship with my family and how it was being observed from either parties, and my relationship with school, with my relationship with my purpose. It depended on my perspective, and it was something up until this point I didn't really even know how to title anything. Everything was just a project. That although that other one was The Pass. That one that I showed that had the 2 figures split apart into 6 versions, passing a roach, the final roach, and it was called The Pass, which was a good name for something that suggested exchange, and art was my exchange with my community, from myself to my outside world, the pass. But other than that, I really didn't title anything. Everything just kind of had a vibe and a purpose, and maybe all of that would have helped me title things if I really thought about the vibe and the purpose. But it wasn't until I picked up this shirt and kept thinking, well, it's a shirt, but it really depends. When I'm in this strange altered state of mind, that shirt was not a shirt. It was definitely a cat. But then, the shirt on its own, it was depending on the light, depending on its form, depending on its position, depending on how I felt that day, the shirt would become so much more than a cat. So I felt like it was important to kind of double take this piece before I continued. The concept of it all depends is something that carries throughout this whole series, especially with fabric, but also as I start crumpling, and we'll discuss a little bit more during this episode how deeply I start crumpling. I have a few pieces that I want to share in regards to that. But this whole fabric series is a progression, just like this piece spirals. This fabric series is the beginning of my black hole into tighter and tighter and tighter and denser textures of folds of space. So, also, I almost forgot, which is probably for the best, but while I was trying to excavate images for this episode, I came across a piece that I threw away. I didn't know why I carried this piece for so long. It just kind of followed me, some sort of attachment that I had to it. And it wasn't until I don't even really remember the breaking point where I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this circle of stress. I keep going around and around and around in loops. Like, I'm tired of being reminded of it. It's just making this circle of stress concrete. And it was already starting to tear. But it was this piece right here. It was actually the first real time I used this pencil after taking like 20 or 30 milligrams of Adderall from a friend that I was supposed to use for studying for an exam, but I instead saw my mind and was like, oh my gosh, I need to be studying for this, and started just drawing and drawing and drawing. And after 9 hours, I drew this piece, and I didn't finish it. I was just like, what was that? Where am I? I'm I have no idea I have no idea where I am, where I went, what's in front of me, what is this thing? And it haunted me for years before I finally had the guts to just rip it up, literally rip it up and throw it in the trash. Well, I recycled it. I'm not sure if it's actually recyclable, but I recycled it. I tried. I wanted it to both literally and metaphorically be recycled back into the ethers. And it was about the me, myself, and I situation that I had, where there's a part of me that has confidence and maybe sometimes too much confidence, but I'm stable. But then there's a part of me that I step on top of in order to support that confidence. It's not an unfounded confidence. And that part of me always looks back whenever I'm here in this place. He always looks back and aspires to be that. I don't know which one I really am. Sometimes I just feel like this guy behind it all that's just trying to sabotage this confidence and push me down into this state of being. And many times that can exaggerate the epicness of my confidence when I'm in the middle of it. Like, that might sound egotistical, but when you are confident, you feel like things are really happening. It doesn't matter what anyone around you thinks. Obviously, unless you're being mean or you're bullying, but that's not confidence. That's like just a mixture of arrogance and self-hate. This is like, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to be anyone. I am this, and that's all that I need to be. And my efforts to tear him down while still maintaining that posture would only make my confidence seem stronger when I had it. But also, while I was making this piece, I kept wondering, where was this character that kept trying to tear me down coming from? And in this piece, you don't really see it straightforward because it doesn't really want it to be seen. The source of sabotage, self-sabotage, doesn't want to be seen, so you can't get in the way of it ruining your life. It's coming straight out of the ass of my insecurities. So there's just this big circle of stress, and it's all, it was just confusing. I don't know. To this day, I don't know why I drew it out. I felt like this was something that I needed to see. That's the reason I draw, is there's something I need to see that's stuck in my head that needs to be put out so I can really see it and study it with what I was seeing it with my mind. I need to use my mind to see the thing that was in my mind, so my mind could be a separate part from the thing that was in my mind. It can have a conversation with itself. And also, I threw Meowgie in there because he was the kitty in the fabric. When I saw my cat in the t-shirt, oh, it was actually, I was doing this before I saw my cat in the t-shirt, and I threw him in here, but I was using some sort of fabric that I found in a class. For something like it was the same fabric I used for the chair that I mentioned before, where you drape the fabric over the chair, and I was supposed to be doing a chair fabric study drawing, and I used that same fabric that I had from class, and I built this dragon figure, and I threw my cat in there. And later down the line, I had that trip where I ended up picking up the t-shirt on the floor. I think it was because this is why I'm doing this, so I can excavate these things. But I think it was because I did a study where my cat and the fabric dragon were kind of one and embedded, and then I actually experienced the, for lack of a better word, it's more of an onomatopoeia of confusing my cat for a t-shirt or a t-shirt for my cat. And yeah, I also, my hand is on top of this eye because I felt like I was reaching for some sort of clarity when I was doing a piece like this. Like I said, it happened within a 9-hour Adderall like bender. It was my first time taking Adderall. It was freshman of college, or no, sophomore, so first semester sophomore college. I think I was 19, and never had Adderall. It was out of my mind at the time. It was like no other psychedelic I've ever experienced. My body had a mind of its own, and I know that seems weird to say, but I couldn't control myself. And I think that's why people use that shit. It's to lose the mind that's telling them not to do the work or whatever. I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't do it anymore. After that 9-hour experience, I was like, that is not a substance for me. I need to take this self-exploration a little bit slower. I don't care how much work I did. I got there too fast, and clearly I was stressed. So yeah, from here to eventually here, I found harmony in this world of folds. I found some dopeness, some real excitement. Like I was like, dude, okay, yeah, that bear was tight, but that was only the drain leading to the pipe system where I would be Mario in a plumbing system where I could get lost and find so many mystical beings and powers. But also, before I go here, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that previous relationship that I was in. It was my first, like, 2.5, 3. I think it was a 3-year long, 2.5, 3-year relationship. Before that, I was, like I said, I was just bouncing back and forth between the women in my life, and that one relationship, It was the first one where I had to question whether my art, my self-expression was more important than tending to another and on an intimate level. And I remember doing this piece. It's in my sketchbook where I was trying to prove to her that they were one and the same. That my love for this craft and figuring myself out was going to pay off in the end in sharing my passion and my I don't know, attention to detail on an intimate level towards the relationship. So I did this love letter with my that T-shirt that I found on the floor, and I crumbled it into a heart with a heart tucked into the heart to try to show her that I could still see us in this exploration that I was undergoing. It's like I could do both. It's like going on a hike and thinking about your life mid-hike. You're going through this hike and you get to different points where there's rivers and brooks and ponds and lakes and mountains and beautiful skies, and in the middle you're not only seeing that, yes, that's inspiring, but you are thinking about what you left at home and what you have to come back to. So this was kind of me trying to prove to myself that I could retain focus on everything, but also to prove to her, whether that's important now or whatever, it was to prove to her that it was not all lost, that it was all woven together, intertwined. But yes, let's proceed. I eventually got here. This was the second time that I pursued the world of fabric. And if you know where my work is now, if you saw episode 1 and you saw how colorful and bold and character driven my work is now, you probably wonder what the connection is, why this matters. Like get on with it. What is Pi about? What are these illustrations saying? What is the story? But again, or if I didn't say it before, this is everything that I'm discussing now is infused in the purpose and my intent with anything I'm doing now. They are inseparable. There was no real moment where this style's done and I'm moving on. It was only a way to evolve and reapply lessons learned, and to grow. And when you look at yourself in your 30s and you look back at your 20s, you're like, wow, I was a totally different person. But in your 30s, you are who you learn to be in your 20s. It's inseparable. You're not a different person. You are what you have learned. You are the fact that you let things go. You are what you have taken with you. Not to say you are your memories, but you are what you retain. What you decide to hold on to. And this, like I said, it all depends. That concept of perspective and context and all of that it will be carried up until my Peillustrations, where it still all depends. There is not one way to view it. There is not one story. Each symbol doesn't mean any one thing. They are constantly instigating dialogue from one symbol to the next, and with the color choices and even line weight suggests symbolism. and how it should be perceived, but also uh, like whether it should be perceived any one way. But we'll get more into that when we jump into the Peillustrations and why I chose that style and the digital medium and all of that. Here we are still in a traditional plane. That being said, I think that anyone that does digital work should have a traditional background, a confident traditional background. I This is my own personal opinion, but I don't trust a digital artist that doesn't have a strong portfolio in a traditional a digital artist that doesn't have a strong portfolio in a traditional medium. I actually hated the idea of jumping into digital work until not even until, I just didn't want to do it. I was dead set on always using this pencil. I was in love. You know how it is when you get in love. There isn't anybody that you would rather see. That is the person you want to live with for the rest of your life. And me and this pencil, like we were thick as thieves. There was nothing that could separate us. But like I said, there wasn't a separation. There was a reapplication where things needed to evolve. And I still go back to that pencil every now and then. I have flings with the pencil just to keep a part of my brain warm with the concepts that I learned while doing work like this. But this piece is called the Fractal Garden. I mean, I've been asked before whether, like, oh man, what were you on when you drew this? Like, you must have been tripping. And I mean, think what you want, believe me, or like however much you want. I could not do this while tripping. As if. There's no way you can focus on so much detail while out of your mind. You had to be completely in it in order to replicate what you were seeing. It's not like painting where you can be in a wild state and come back to it the next day and clean things up. Everything you see here was drawn meticulously, without the ability to erase. There's nothing over anything. Every t-shirt was drawn one at a time. And something like this took me I was working, had school, was in a relationship, kept a social life, would be burning, blazing. And it took me about a month to get something like this done, or it was 4 weeks to get something like this done. You don't trip for 4 weeks and do this. I wasn't even doing this to trip. I wasn't even doing. I would occasionally come to it while in a certain state of mind and be like, wait, whoa! I knew I saw that in that T-shirt before, but now, oh, I really see it. That is something else. But sometimes it'd be too much to see while tripping. I couldn't really. I would get lost. And this piece was about finding myself in it, not getting lost. But I don't even remember where I started. I want to say I started here. And then I didn't like the same thing with the bear. I didn't know the bear was coming. I didn't know that these not spirals, but these horns were coming. I didn't know this arc was coming. I just knew, coming from that last piece, it all depends, that I wanted to keep studying this shirt. And yes, I was on that same bed that I was drawing on that masonite board, that one sheet of paper, as I was with the It All Depends drawing. I was maintaining this ball rolling. I just wanted to keep it going, and I had a system, and whether I was hunching over and hurting myself, it didn't matter. I was on a mission, and no one could stop me. Um, but remember, one of the shirts that I drew in this state of mind was that heart shirt. You can see the style. You can see that there may have been even a heart in here. Like I could see the heart in here. I don't know. I just wanted to say that while I was doing this, I was trying to retain that heart that I saw in the T-shirt. The heart was something the T-shirt could always be. Just like I could always be some part of myself, even though I was so many others. I was trying to maintain one focal state of mind while disassociating at the same time into all these other transformations of myself. And every time I did a form, I would look back and I would think, oh wow, what is that? So this drawing was actually the first time that it had been many drawings before it was the final drawing, because I would see it and it would be a cloud forming. It's like you're watching a cloud and you see it at 1:30 p.m. It's a cloud and it's small, and you're cloud watching, and you're like, wow, that looks like a dolphin. That actually, it looks like a stingray now. And then it's like you look away and it's 1:40 p.m. 10 minutes later, and it's like, whoa, it's grown. There's like new clusters of vapor attached. It's extended itself, and now it's like for example, I'd be looking at just this part because I'd be doing boom, boom, and then boom. And at first, I'm seeing like moon shapes or eyeballs and like mouths. And I remember seeing this mascot here that was like this eagle, like its beak and its arms. But then I was also seeing like a seal with its tail and a face. That mascot was also a seal. And it kept becoming new things, but it didn't have any of this stuff. It was just white paper, these folds, like almost like what is that? I don't know if it's a Muppet or whatever, but he had like a wrinkly face, some sort of puppet character that had a wrinkly face, but he also had like a turban of some sort. But then in that turban, I'm seeing like this eagle with like a beak, or like not an eagle, but like a vulture pecking at this character with eyes squinting. It just kept changing. The cloud kept growing vapor, and also I was a major cloud watcher, and that could have had something to do with different substances I would experiment with. But clouds are one of my favorite things to observe, because I felt close to them. Their cycle was something I resonated with, and their form constantly changing was something I resonated with, and their ability to be both peaceful for a majority of the time and then fucking storm for like a week and flood my life with emotion. I felt the water cycle, so I always thought about that while I was doing this. I was, what was the word that I found? I was in a nephilicosisia state of mind, which is the study of what it means to cloud watch. Nephilicosisia, which is, I think, Latin or some sort of translation to the castle in the sky, which is where I lived. And I continued to progress through this drawing. I remember I kind of wanted to do figure eights, or I just wanted to snake, almost like that dragon we saw earlier. I wanted it to like grow out. And I remember I got to this point and I saw this gnome character, or a jester gnome, that had this big nose, hook nose and nostril, and he was frowning. that was something I always saw. And then like, I kept seeing birds, like bird in here, and like a dinosaur head. And I'm sure anyone watching this is seeing their own things, and it all depends on you, what you're seeing and why it looks like that, and what you did that day. And it really all depends. And this fractal garden is going to blossom into this or that depending on where you are in the fractal of your life, which is kind of how I was thinking about this. Also, you get to points where there's bigger shapes. I grew this way, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for symmetry again. I think it has something to do with my OCD, but I would want to do something like abstract, or loose, and then I would find symmetry in it, and I'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna try and reflect this. It will not. There's no way I can make that shirt the same shirt again. It would be like sculpting from life, and I was not about to get that deep in it yet. But I eventually did these horns, and I was like, wow, like I felt like I was drawing a ram, and I felt like I was the ram, and I was headbutting into this concept, and all to figure out, one, why the hell did I see a cat in my t-shirt? And two, who am I but this t-shirt? When I pick up myself, what am I in that moment where I'm holding myself? And this was just a journey through, like going on a major hike. I was raised traveling, and she's brought me and my brothers and I, to all sorts of countries to explore different paths and major hikes. And I mean, I'm not a traveler now, but I have a traveler state of mind, and no matter where I am, I'm always thinking about who I am. So I'm traveling through these obscure scenes. These are all scenes in life that would become these large landscapes. It would become anything. And I would be hiking through these scenes with my pencil as my blind man stick. And I would just walk and think about who I am. What am I doing here? What do I mean? Why do I feel this way? Why did I feel this way yesterday, but today I feel totally different? What crumpled me into this place? What light am I casting on all of this? Am I in the dark? Can I even see myself right now? And I would just be thinking about thoughts like that while I'm going through this meditative state of reflecting on this t-shirt and trying to replicate it. But I remember one time I saw this elephant, like it was its eye and its head and the ear, or like an ear flap here, and then its tusk, or not its tusks were here, and then its a trunk was all over that one first snake of t-shirts. And then I was like, whoa, like at first I became this ram, and as I started filling the horns, I became this elephant. And I started thinking about memory, like, yes, I could be stubborn and ram into any adversary. Adversaries could be outside or inside yourself, but I can also be an elephant and have the best memory in the animal kingdom, and remember my path, and remember my tribe, my migration, and also remember my pain, and also remember what mattered to me, what I should protect, inside or out. And it's things like that where I would see these animals, or see these scenes, or see these faces, and I would see myself in that, what I saw. Like, And I think anyone that lives their life, like, they can, if they're sensitive, they can get triggered by what they see and see some sort of synchronicity in what they see and why they're seeing it at this moment in their life. And keep in mind, I did this over the course of 4 weeks. So I was seeing the ram, or I was seeing this mascot like the first few days, and I'm seeing this moon where I'm going through phases the next couple days, and then I'm seeing this like ugly puppet character with a vulture pecking at him like the next few days, and I might be in an argument or whatever, and then I'm seeing like lion faces, and I feel like I'm coming out of that place, and you keep, or I would just keep seeing what I saw depending on how I feel. And looking back at it now, I still feel that way. It's like I embedded these memories, like the elephant. I embedded these memories deep into these marks, into these hikes. Even here, like I remember seeing this rooster. I can't forget what I saw. Like there's this rooster right here with its beak. And I guess I was being cocky or whatever, and then I would just fall into this ocean, these rapids of collars and the bottoms of the shirts or the sleeves, and I was just crashing in the rapids of my life, and not so cocky now kind of mentality. I don't know, it felt like I was getting more in tune with myself and exploring myself through this, more so than It All Depends in that bear drawing where I was just spiraling in and barely poking out from the center with that little finger. I was only entering this portal of being able to see reflections of myself in it. I was still learning how to draw this the way I wanted to, and attaining some level of control, but also letting it be itself. Like, you can't really, it's hard to help what you wind up making here. Things can kind of just happen, but learning that that's how it happened that's how it happens is a level of control. Like, you work with it, with its own nature, and you it's almost like line taming. You make it feel like that's what you want it to do, even though you know it does what it does naturally. But then after I did this, I felt like I needed something more. I needed, I don't know. It just needed something more. These horns weren't enough. I needed to, I felt like I needed to erupt from this. I needed to, like in the garden, I needed to blossom. I needed to explode like a flower would out of a bud. Like, these were just the buds of the garden. I needed to erupt, and I remember just trying to sculpt these floral patterns out of the t-shirt. That's where I was starting more to think about the garden, the fractal garden. Before, I was in this animal kingdom, but then I felt like I was more in that Garden of Eden state where I wanted to find my Adam, find my Eve. Not to be religious, but just to be metaphorical. To find my Adam and find my Eve in this animal kingdom and establish my humanity. So while I was doing this element, I also started seeing this mushroom cloud form from the center of these horns. Like, I was literally erupting, and then the plume were these flowers, and then from these flowers came more human type shapes. Like, I remember seeing here that this was like my brain on the top left, and then this was my ear, and these eyebrows, and a nose, and this is the shoulder. The horns were just one shoulder, and I'm peeking behind the shoulder, the chip on my shoulder. And I was also seeing a lot of like female anatomy, um, and that was like the Eve in me, my nature to nurture. And I was jumping back and forth like this arc. I was jumping back between, while I was drawing it, between and reminiscing on it and looking back on it. I was thinking about the dualities of myself, my masculine and my feminine traits. But it was all again in this T-shirt, and who would have known that seeing my cat in a T-shirt would lead to thoughts like this? But I trusted it. It was like, you know what? I pulled this out of a really, really sensitive and vulnerable place. Clearly, I'm going to be entering some sensitive and vulnerable places if I continue to pick at this. And like by the end, when I saw it all, I could see everything at once. Who I was on all these levels. Well, before you saw that picture where I'm many different versions of myself reaching to another duality of many different versions of myself, and they're kind of clashing and trying to meet in the middle like the yin and yang. And here I was using the darks and the lights to paint these pictures of myself that could keep changing, because I was not the people, and I didn't relate to the people in that picture where they were literally people. I relate more to this cloud-like structure where it can keep changing, and you look away for 10 minutes and it's not that anymore. It's something completely else. And to see different concrete versions of myself reflected back at me, like during like various stages, like those are memories that I jotted down, and I remember to this day all of these things here. And then I could see it all at once when it's all together, not in these individual blobs, not ever complete. It's finally complete. I could see all these different versions of myself at once, and I felt like, okay, this right here, what's in front of me, that is the closest that I've gone or gotten to myself. Actually, I grew up, I went to, I was in art programs for middle school and high school, and they force you to draw yourself. So I started like being fascinated in self-portraits, and I remember my mom would always tell me when I was drawing one, like, "Oh, you're drawing yourself again." And it's funny to look back at it and think, you know what? I was never actually drawing myself. It wasn't until here that I felt like I had some sort of semblance to myself. Like, okay, I saw enough of myself in here to recognize myself in here. The person that I see in the mirror is a vessel at best that holds the spirit that is myself. And I hope that me talking about myself in this way only illuminates your own nature, because the closer I got to know myself, the more I recognized this nature in others. That no one person was any one thing I thought they were. And I also recognize that every person changes in this way, and in different lights can completely transform. So anything that I say in this series, as I proceed, I may be speaking about myself, but I'm also speaking in light of what I've realized about others through self-exploration. And as I continue to do this series, I would observe others with more depth and try to pick apart the different versions of themselves and make these larger fractal gardens that are closer renditions of their personality, their identity, but recognize that that is only one viewpoint of all of those viewpoints. Like, you have to keep in mind that when I am drawing any one shirt, I am ignoring the other side of that shirt. I'm only looking at one angle of an infinite number of other angles of that one crumple of shirt. And sometimes I would take that shirt and I would not even uncrumple it and recrumple it. I would pick it up and move it and then put it down with trying not to disturb it, so it was the same shirt crumple but a different angle, to prove that even the same side of something or someone in a different light from a different angle can be something entirely different. It really all depends. So yeah, at this point, I was really starting to get a hang of myself and what I really saw in that t-shirt, what really fascinated me, and it became so much more than a shirt. And also, when people observe my work out of context, they don't see a shirt. They see all the things that I'm seeing. But they don't see the shirt. But then I tell them this is a shirt like 100 times. And they're like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, like, actually, I do see the collars. Like, I do see the seams. Like, I can actually see the shirt, and then they're in disbelief that they could see all these animals or figures or scenes or mystical beings and just all these shapes in it. And I always hope that when they go back to their dirty laundry, they'll be like, wow, that's magical. Obviously, clean your clothes, but like sometimes your dirty laundry can have the most interesting views. You don't have to always go out and explore the tourist traps. Like, you have a beautiful scene right there in your hamper, if you have the mind for it. And that's just one microcosm of the grander way. Like, yes, you can look out and go to, Maui or whatever, and with this state of mind, you can truly be grateful for the scene, for the culmination of things and textures and the assembly of nature a little bit more deeply. There's a little bit more depth to the structure of the world when you can appreciate a t-shirt for what it can do. So actually, I was in this place where I had a insecurity with my abilities. I may go into it later. I'm still on the fence about discussing this on a public realm. That's not a personal thing. Even though I've admitted quite a lot, this thing I feel like will make or break how others see me. Like, I mean, I am all these things that can be seen. Like, I transform into all this, but I feel like if I admit something, it will shroud everything in one new lens that I'm not sure if I'm ready for. But I knew that, and I've had people ask me like, oh, like why are you so involved with the black and gray? Can't you do anything else? And they don't know me. They didn't know how deeply I got involved in very colorful work and even still lives and like not just psychedelic graffiti, but like I would do figure painting or still life painting where you are doing all these colorful planes and like background washes and glazes. But in order to translate these thoughts, I felt like I had to write them down in this way, in this fashion, where it could be observed without the distractions of color. I I wanted to show. It's like I felt like the color of a shirt was the reason, or the pattern on a shirt was the reason the shirt could not be seen. It needed to be decontextualized and put in this way in order for that shirt to become what it really could be, its true potential. But in light of that, I was like, you know what? I drew all these things. I found nature in it. Like, I wonder if I can do something else with maybe more texture and really pull something from nature. Kind of like how I'm saying you go to Maui and you end up seeing this nice, beautiful spot. And you're like, wow, like look at the trees, look at the leaves, like. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and draw just a piece, almost like pulling a shirt out of a dirty hamper. I wanted to pull a piece out of nature, like pull one of these shirts out of this fractal garden. And I ended up finding this log, and we'll end this stream, this episode on this piece, because it leads into exploring more with color, with my fabric in mind. But I was working at Winn-Dixie at the time, still dating the same girl, and she was actually one of the people that asked me why I don't work in color, and just to give it a shot, blah blah blah. And I saw this lady who was driving her pickup truck, and I was going out for some carts. I was done with my cashier shift, and I was ready to go outside and breathe. Like, people say the carts are the worst part, but I was like, oh, I get to go outside. My mind was still on t-shirts and school, and I just needed the open space. I needed to expand. And I saw this lady who looked like she needed help loading her car with her groceries, and I went, hey, like, can I help you out? Like, can I pull things out of your car and, load you up? And she's like, oh yeah, thank you so much, blah blah blah. And then I started looking in the bed of her truck, and I saw all of these stumps, like chopped stumps of tree trunk. And when I saw, like, it was like, a dozen tree trunk segments in the back of her car, and it looked like this fractal garden in the back of her truck. Like, that's how doing this transformed the way I saw the world. I was like, man, that's a great collection of tree trunks in the back of your truck. And she was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, we had to tear down a tree in our front yard. It was growing into the electric lines or something along those lines. And I was like, oh, if you're tossing these anywhere, you mind if I keep one? And she's like, yeah, sure, take whatever you want. And it's funny, I was helping her load things into her car, and then I left with something. It's kind of, that there's a weird karma there. And I took this with me. I put it in my car, went back, finished my shift, went home, took a scrap piece of paper that was going to be something entirely different. I had finished my fractal garden at this point. I was ready to start the new piece. And I scratched that. I was like, I'm drawing this log. I'm going to put this thing on paper. I could do it. I drew 100 t-shirts on one piece of paper. I can draw this log built out of 100 t-shirts on this piece of paper. And I went to the public studio at the school at college, and I set this in a spot where I put a note like, hey, no one touch this. It needed the same light. I was drawing it from life, just like the t-shirts. And it was my first time drawing something not on my bed, which is kind of funny. I was drawing the fabric on my bed, and then I was drawing this tree stump on a table. I don't know. I felt like there was some sort of connection, like that separation. I couldn't have drawn this. I mean, either way, I couldn't have drawn this tree stump on my bed. I wouldn't want this thing on my bed. It would kind of start falling apart if it was doing that, if I did that with it. So I needed a stable spot to put this. Left a note saying, no one touch this. I'm drawing this from life. And I started from the left. This is like a big chunk that came off of it. This is the edge of the bark. And I just started growing. I did all of the lines. And I was trying to find the fabric in this space. My studying of fabric helped me break up the lines that built the general forms of this textural space. I was surfing the edges of all these lines. It was verbatim. Everything you see is how it was. I did not make up anything. It was this tree stump. I was going to replicate this tree stump exactly for what it was and show my respect, to say to myself, I am more than a shirt, kind of thing. And I am this tree stump. I am one segment of this larger picture of humanity or whatever. And I didn't want to disrespect it in any way. And this is kind of where it started. You get this idea of where I was doing general structures and plates and strong shadows, and I was trying, like, it looks a lot like the t-shirt, the lines, but on a more micro level. And I after I was really going with it, I was like, all right, let's do the whole thing. I drew the whole thing in that way, and then I came back around with a few different colors of colored pencil and started filling it in, doing it, as I saw it. And this is where we ended up. And I again would see different figures. It felt like I was looking at stained glass. I felt like I was seeing a whole crowd of people all assembled. Kind of like how I was saying I'm one chunk from the scene of humanity. I was seeing in this one chunk a collection of humans, of figures that were all conglomerating in this one, like, festival that was the bark. Obviously I could see it was bark, but when drawn in this fashion, I was like, man, this is so much more than bark. This is growth. And at the same time, I felt like I was growing with it. And it's wild looking at this. This is actually a piece that I kept for a while, and later down the line, after a couple girlfriends in between the previous girl I was with, that it kind of inspired me to draw this. And another one, I gave this to another person that made me experience something I never thought I would ever experience in my entire life, on a personal level, not on like an intimate relationship level, but on a personal level. And I wanted to give her this because she made me feel, what we had together made me feel like I was seeing it for the first time. So I got everything I needed from it. I can give it away. And I think we got into an argument later on, and about how we saw each other. It really all depends, really. And I think she gave it to a friend, so it didn't scare me from giving other people my art, because I knew it was going where it needed to go, even if it ended up in the trash, whatever. We were all getting what we needed out of this. I definitely did. And the lady was throwing away these tree stumps anyways. I mean, I'm sure someone has it framed somewhere in their house, but it's tossed out of my life. Just like the lady was tossing that tree out of her life. Who knows how long that tree was there, how long it was appreciated, how often they chopped the branches into firewood, but eventually she had to tear it down. And this was something I had to tear down. It was something I carried, that lesson is something I carried with me throughout the rest of my work, and even now as I leave artworks around my city and just I'm so much better at letting things go. But I think I had one more thing to share. Oh, I was thinking about how I was not drawing on the bed anymore, and it made me think about the bed that I was laying my sheet of masonite, which is thin synthetic wood, with a piece of paper, and I would lean it on my bed, and oftentimes I would put my bed sheet underneath to give it some sort of angle, like a prop, and it was this bed sheet who it's a bed sheet I got a duvet cover for the other day for the first time ever. This bed sheet has been in my life for so long, and I finally got a duvet cover, so I could stop washing the sheets and ruin the feathers inside. Now I can just wash a duvet cover, and we're all good. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to, like, I forgot that there was a big crumple. I was so captivated by this T-shirt and what it could do that I forgot. And you can't really see the details in this. This is like a bad picture because I gave this to my dad. There's a personal reason I gave it to him, but I was like, finally, like I could see more than the T-shirt. I could see past the T-shirt. There's so much more that I could see in light of this, and I was finally able to see all the other crumples for reference, and I saw this big T-shirt that was my duvet, and I crumpled it up into like a shape of a brain, and I was like, let me commemorate this moment of realization, of actualization. And I drew it. I spent a couple days drawing my bed sheet. And it was the same, like, 2 or 3 week span that I was jumping between this tree stump and this bed sheet. I don't know. I'm sure I know the connection, but I haven't looked back at these pieces in a while. And I'm making these connections, rehashing it now, in a stupor. But yeah. But going this big and working with color to this degree ended up leading me to go back to the folds again. There was a piece in between where I was like, hey, if I can draw a tree stump, I wonder if I can draw this or that or this or that. But we'll get into that later. I still had more work to do with that T-shirt. I felt like I still had more to learn in terms of assembling things from the T-shirt, and also building confidence in the use of color with the T-shirt, because I was always doing black and white. I was trying to see if maybe I can get some sort of illusion of nature if I did my black and white textures and forms and gradients with a color scale and a reference for larger forms, and everything all together led to what we will see in episode 3. I will showcase a much larger piece. It's a piece that I have hanging over the head of my bed. It's funny to say that out loud. And it's a piece that also helped me appreciate the black and white realm even more, oddly enough, through an exploration of color. I never knew that anyone would help the other, but you explore, you experiment, and you see what comes out of it. But the piece we will see in episode 3 is called The Waterfall, and if I can get through the waterfall in episode 3, I will also, like, in a decent amount of time, I will also share Another piece that I'm not going to name because I think it gives it away. I'd rather have some sort of surprise. I mean, the waterfall, you can only really imagine what I do in light of everything I shared here. But the piece that comes out after the waterfall is something that the title says it all, and everything came to a point where I was like, all right, I'm done. I see myself in the folds. uh, I can step out and really, really explore more with this perspective. So, yeah, I think that is episode 2. I think we discussed a really big transition for me. We really covered a lot of ground, and I covered a lot of things that I'm going to be thinking about for a little while now. A lot of things that I kind of forgot about because I don't usually stare this long at older pieces. I'm usually staring at the crumples in my mind that form the next work. But this has already fed so much of my thoughts. I have so much food for thought that I wasn't expecting from my past. I hope you guys got something out of this. I forgot that I was recording this for y'all. I was just speaking out loud since I can't write. This is how I am jotting things down and just letting it go. But yeah, I'm going to be also doing this little thing after my recordings where I will share episodes of a totally tangent series that will make more sense as we progress through works that will come out of this. But it's, I think, going to be a fun ending clip between episode to episode. Just after so much dense material and taking this so seriously, I feel like I need to cleanse our palette with a fun little ditty of these clay figures that I make called Peibis. And I'm going to start with a video of a time Peibi grilling up, which is what I feel like I'm doing right now. I'm making food for thought and grilling this up and getting it charred and ready to serve. And with time, it'll all make sense. So I think this little clip will help set the mood for this journey we will take through this body of work. So I hope you enjoyed this clip, and I hope to see you guys in episode 3. I had a lot of fun discussing this work. I hope you guys got something out of it, and I hope you, even if you're not creative, you feel like drawing something or writing something or trying to bring some of the ideas, the wild ideas in your head out to see it and reflect on it. And yeah, it just means a lot that you guys are here. I couldn't believe that anyone watched my last episode. That you guys would, spend some time with me as I spend my time on this. It really, really does mean a lot. So let's put up this video. Enjoy this this palette cleanser, and I hope you guys have a great day, a great night, and a great time in general. Love y'all.